What's up, dedicated Dragon Ball denizens? I'm Ryan, and we're here for another episode of the Hawks Dragon Ball Nest. Excited for this episode. We're going to get something a little bit different here. The first in our series of performance psychology concepts. We've got regionals coming up, so I wanted to do a short little series where I go through a few of those concepts and help you to perform at your best in regionals, or really using these anytime in locals. So this time we're going to go over pre-performance routine. I'll talk a little bit about what a pre-performance routine is in the context of competitive TCG. Then we'll go through why it's important to create a pre-performance routine, and then finally how exactly to do it. So stay tuned and let's get into it. All right, now what is a pre-performance routine? So it's basically a routine that someone creates and it helps get themselves into your ideal performance state. In other words, it gets you ready to play at your best, especially in new environments. So, when we're going to regionals, you may be used to your locals. Some people may be only playing online, and when you're changing environments, it's extremely important to get a routine going that's going to help give you that continuity. And this routine should be something that you're using more than just your first time at regionals, right? So it really ensures that you're in the right mental and physiological state to perform at your best. Now, it is scripted, especially when you're writing this out, you want it to be very scripted, very detailed as possible, but you want it to be flexible. If it's too inflexible when you show up at regionals or anywhere and there's some changes, maybe you need it to be super quiet, right? But it's going to be super loud there. How is that going to work? Maybe it needs to be really short because you're running late, but you have this as like a 10-minute thing. So you need to be extremely detailed when you're creating it, but it also needs to be flexible enough to be able to adapt to your environment. Now, why are pre-performance routines important? What they do is a few things, right? There is increased sense of control when you're setting that. You're starting off your competition already having completed something and gotten yourself into a state where you feel more in control. Now, it's research based that the more in control you feel, the better you perform, right? So that's what we want. We want to have as much of a sense of control as possible as we're going into our matches, right? And it gives you the ability to start in a self-paced way rather than going in, maybe letting your opponent set the tone for you. Maybe you're rushing in and looking around and really trying to block out these external distractions along the way. This helps get you to already start and kind of start winning already. You've already completed something that you set out to. And a lot of the really great benefits to this, in my opinion, the best benefits is it helps to regulate, or it puts you in your optimal energy levels. Everybody has a different energy. Some people like to be super hyped. They want to be super hyped, super energized. Other people want to be a little bit more relaxed. There's the continuum of where it is. Everybody has their individual zone of optimal functioning. So this pre-performance routine, you're going to write it in a way that helps you get to that zone, right? And it's also letting you set that in tone, setting intentions. You're not only kind of getting your breathing right, getting your energy right, imaging yourself doing well and winning, but you're also going to set intentions. My intention is whatever that may be. Maybe it's winning the whole thing. Maybe it's reaching top 16. Maybe it's just having a lot of freaking fun, okay? But this is going to help you get there. Okay, now there are 5 steps to a pre-performance routine. The first one is readying. Then we have imaging. Then we have focusing attention as 3, executing, number 4, and evaluating, which actually happens after the routine. So let's jump into each of them in depth so that you're able to start creating your own pre-performance routine. Readying. Okay, so readying is really before you're even doing that. Like, this is where creating the script. This is what you're doing before you actually get to the performance really well in advance so that you're able to script this out. So what is that? What is realistic to stick to using prior to every performance? Is it 1 minute long, 30 seconds? Maybe it is 5 minutes long, right? But make sure that's realistic. Think about your optimal energy levels. Do you like to be hyped, and I'm going to go? Then you want to make sure that your routine gets you into that state. Or do you want to be relaxed? Maybe that means you're throwing some breathing into here, right? some deep breaths, right? I'm a pretty hyped person, in case you haven't noticed, but I actually like to get pretty relaxed prior to jumping in so that it slows things down a bit, right? Some people want that hype. Okay, now think of your body. Where are you? What are you doing? For cards, then you're probably going to imagine yourself at a table in a chair, right? Uh, think about what cards you have in hand, specific cards, not just, oh, they're Dragon Ball, and put a picture to that. What's in your hand? What's your opponent doing? You know, what do their cards look like on the board? In that regard, their body too. But really think of your body, the motions that you have in there, and not just motions, but emotions. How do you want to feel? Do you want to feel confident? Do you want to feel ready? What are those emotions that you want to feel? And then think about like what you don't want to feel, right? Fear, anxiety, you know, these things keep out of your routine, right? And then think of both the process and the results, right? You may think about yourself walking up to the table, giving a little fist bump to your opponent, uh, throughout the game, drawing a card, putting a card down, taking a prize, resting one of your cards. These things are all things that you want to get out there in the process. And then the results, getting a win. Imagine that one when you're checking in on the app. You know, you got that one next to your name. Very good things there. And you're not going to fit all of this in, but what are the most important parts to you? You know, those are just some examples. So that's readying. Okay, and then imaging. This is when we're actually starting to do the routine. Previously, this is when we're creating it, right? So imaging is create a picture or story of you performing at your best, right? So you're kind of getting ready, and it doesn't mean you jump right into that. Maybe you do some breathing first. Maybe you're thinking of your favorite song and all of that, but it should really at some point lead in that pre-performance routine to you performing at your best. So think of good and bad matchups too. Maybe you think of a bad matchup for you, but you overcoming that matchup. Maybe there's a specific instance where you usually fold and you're like, oh, I don't know how to overcome this, but you've practiced a little bit or a lot of it, and you've kind of, you know what you need in order to overcome it. Think about that, right? And make sure to include feelings, right? How do I feel? Am I confident in this situation? Am I excited to see this matchup? You know, just getting into it. All of these emotions, you want to make sure that this is very vivid to you, right? Very vivid. And then with that, involve all your senses. I think where a lot of people usually fall short in these pre-performance routines and imaging in general, which will be a topic we go over later more in depth, is all senses. Don't just have visuals, not just the eyes. You want to make sure sounds, like what do the sounds, the cards sound like in your hand. Think about that little noise it makes when you put it down on the table. The sound of you shuffling your deck. Sounds are great. Touch. How does the card feel in your hands? How do your sleeves feel? Think if you're using Dragon Shields, you know, you got a little bit of bumpy texture on the back. The more vivid, the better. Taste is a little bit awkward, but like, what's your favorite drink that you're going to be drinking during your match? You know, taste on that. Smell. That was a little bit tough, but maybe maybe you could smell how your cards are. They're in fresh sleeves or something like that. You know, but the more senses, the better. And those last two are always the trickiest, but if you can incorporate them, all the better. Okay, now let's go into our next step, focusing attention, right? What are we focused on in that pre-performance routine? And you want to stick to relevant stimuli. These are things that help you perform better. The attention should be on your cards in hand, looking at the board and scanning the board, right? You want to leave out the irrelevant stimuli, things that do not matter. The three main ones are going to be distractions. There's a lot going on in the background, especially at regionals. There's a lot of noise. There, you might get observers watching you if your games are going long. Leave that out. You don't want that in your pre-performance routine. You need to lock in and get only what is relevant. Our attentional capacity is limited. Distractions need to go. Other things that hurt performance. Maybe it's in your head. Maybe it's the wrong thoughts. I don't want to lose. Oh, I don't like this matchup. No, keep that out. That's going to hurt your performance because it's affecting your confidence and taking away from your attentional capacity. And then also leave out just irrelevant is things that have no effect. You know, maybe looking over at your opponent, looking over at your buddy at the other table over there. They don't necessarily have an effect on your performance, but they don't help your performance. So it's important to leave that out. All right, then executing. This is kind of the meat and potatoes of where we're kind of getting to with our pre-performance routines, where at the end we are executing, and make sure you picture yourself doing it successfully. There's no reason of doing a pre-performance routine if you're gonna kind of end it by you losing in the finals, even that, right? Or losing at any point, right? You want to get success. This is helping you move forward and get there. So make sure you're getting yourself pull off a successful play or countering your opponent. Maybe there's just a specific way you like to end your matches. Like for me, if I'm using Vegito, I could think about getting that 6 drop in when my deck is down to 0, and then just finishing off my opponent with that crazy couple attacks, right? That's really there. So get down to the minutia. Your hand putting down that card and the sound it makes, the feeling of the sleeves, like I'd mentioned, the smells, if you can incorporate that, really, really detailed, is going to be better. And then finally, we have evaluating, right? This can happen immediately after the pre-performance routine. If there's time, maybe you get through and then you do a little evaluation. How am I feeling right now? Was this enough? Am I in the space that I need to be? If not, you may go back and make adjustments to it and kind of mess with it a little bit, or you might not have time to. But something that you should do after the actual performance is go back and evaluate, right? So not just immediately after, but maybe after you're done, after the tournament's over. This is why test this out at your locals if possible, right? See, did this work out? Did I get into the headspace I needed? Or do I need to make some modifications to this? Do I need to make it longer, shorter, more vivid, focus on other things? All right, well, that is going to do it. That is what a pre-performance routine is for this episode of a special edition of the Hawks Dragon Ball Nest with our mental skills focus. These will drop at least for the next 4 weeks, at least until we get up to our regionals, and perhaps after, really the North American regionals, or the United States regionals, because I think there's regionals in Canada and stuff. So these are going to drop at least until then, but I could potentially get more in there. This is kind of a trial run to see if, there's some interest in this. If there is, please hit that subscribe button to show your support and leave me a comment and let me know what you thought of this. Again, I am also, just to throw it out there, send me a DM. Find me on Discord, Rybread619, if you want to get more information on mental skills training and performance psychology. I do have my master's in that. That is my jam. Aside from playing TCG and recording all these videos, I can do individual sessions if anybody is ever interested. So let me know. But if you're not quite ready to fly it, just hit that like button there. Hopefully we'll show up in an algorithm near you in the near future. But until then, we'll see you next time.